Hi everyone, thank you for joining our session on evasive malware and how to fight back using Active Endpoint Deception technology. I'm Avi, CTO and co-founder of Deceptive Bytes. My expertise includes malware invasion and endpoint deception. I previously worked for Check Point in the endpoint division and Variant Cyber Intelligence. Today's agenda is about the current landscape of threats, the evasive techniques malware uses to protect itself, and how to use this knowledge to our advantage. We'll also give some tips on how to increase your endpoint security without installing additional security tools. In 2020, the world saw an increase in attacks, including phishing, scams, malware, and massive ransomware attacks, demanding huge sums of money, reaching millions of dollars to restore encrypted files and avoid publishing of confidential information stolen from such attacks. All were preventable using the proper tools and procedures. We've seen recently that attackers get more aggressive, using the victim's partners and customers to pressure them and increase the chances of payment, or actually extorting them, like in the case of Apple. Deception is all around us. In the animal kingdom, various animals deploy deception to either protect themselves from being prey or to become better predators. Some examples include camouflage, where animals blend into their surroundings, mimicry, where animals imitate others, and playing dead. These inflatables are Russian-made and are used to confuse the enemy. And this is not new. In World War II, the US deployed the Ghost Army, using the same tactic to convince the Axis powers an attack is coming from one direction, when in fact the attack came from another, helping the Allied forces gain the upper hand. Let's start with an analogy. In a bank, robbers will check the security before robbing it. An advanced bank will give the robbers indicators that it has many security measures such as cameras, motion detectors, guards, etc., and obstacles like different floor plans, fake safes and money, etc. These indicators will deter the robbers in the first place or prevent their success if they do get in. Malware behaves just like bank robbers. So how does malware protect itself? Malware uses different defense evasion techniques to avoid being detected and analyzed. Each category represents a different set of techniques that a malware will utilize in order to detect different security environments, systems, and tools which try to identify it and uncover its true intentions. There are more categories and techniques. Let's dive in a bit to better understand how malware detects such security environments. With anti-virtualization evasion techniques, malware tries to find artifacts from various VM systems such as VMware, VirtualBox, and others. It looks for different folders, files, processes, and other indicators to identify such environments. It also checks for system properties such as the number of CPU cores, memory size, and more, which indicates that the machine is likely a VM rather than a real machine. With anti-sandbox evasion techniques, malware looks for artifacts of known sandbox systems such as Cuckoo Sandbox, Sandboxy, and others. And it also looks for files, folders, processes, and others in the same way it searches for a VM, since many sandbox environments rely on VMs to operate. With anti-analysis, the malware tries to find indicators of analysis tools used by security researchers, such as sys-internal tools, network tools, and more. With anti-debugging, the malware checks if a debugger is attached to it or if there are debugging tools in the system, like IDA, OLI, or others. In both cases, the malware will try to conceal its true nature to prevent its early detection to the researcher or malware analyst behind the scene. Using anti-antivirus evasion techniques, the malware turns off Windows Defender or evades it completely. Malware also knows how to avoid other antivirus engines, even machine learning and AI-based ones, and not just traditional ones that are signature-based. Nowadays, adversaries use their own machine learning or AI to bypass their defensive counterparts and find the safest attack vector for their malware. And there are more types of techniques, totaling in over 1,000 different evasion techniques used by malware. So if we look at a regular endpoint, usually it has more than one CPU, at least 2 GB of memory, more than 100 GB of disk space, the machine name varies, and doesn't have any files or folders related to VMs or sandboxes. In a deception environment, the machine looks like it has only one CPU, less than 2 GB of memory, less than 100 GB of disk space, and different VM and sandbox indicators. So if a malware sees a regular machine, it will attack it. But if it sees a deception environment, it will evade it. Here are some code snippet examples on how a malware can check if the machine has only one CPU core, which is an indicator that the machine is a VM or a sandbox. In the direct approach, the malware can simply read the system's information and check the number of cores. If there's only one core, it will exit and not execute its malicious payload. In more advanced and indirect approaches, the malware can read the number of cores from an environment variable, the registry, using WMI, and in other ways. This is only a partial list, and there always has additional calls that can reveal the information. VMD is an open source tool that mimics how malware checks the machine to detect common VM and sandbox environments before an attack. Since it's open source, malware authors integrate it into their malware to protect the malware from being discovered. This is the 32-bit version. From the indicators of compromise, it tries to check if it's running under Sandbox C by searching for a specific object related to it that doesn't exist in regular machines. It's detected by 28 out of 71 vendors in VirusTotal. This is the 64-bit version. It has the same indicator of compromise, yet none of the vendors detected, even those that detected the 32-bit version. The reason is that while the behavior is the same, the signatures differ, and the 64-bit version doesn't match a known pattern or signature. So how does a malware decide what the best way to attack? It asks the operating system if it's in a virtual machine, a sandbox, if there's a debugger attached, or if there are analysis tools running. And if so, it will try to evade them by either terminating itself or by stopping its malicious behavior and acting benign. In case the malware doesn't check the environment or the answers are no, it will initiate the attack immediately and will continue attacking until it's successful. Of course, in a deception environment, that may not be the real case. The MITRE attack matrix is a toolset for cybersecurity experts of malware tactics. As you can see from the graph, defense evasion is by far the most used tactic employed by threat actors and contains many sub-techniques since it's a powerful tool used by malware authors to prevent the detections of their malware. ENISA, the European Agency for Cybersecurity, conducted a research related to vulnerabilities using the MITRE attack matrix. As seen from the graph, most vulnerabilities use defense evasion capabilities in their attack, more than twice than any other tactic. From the same research, ENISA also clustered the results, and again defense evasion covers most of the attacks and is at the top of the hierarchy. So as you already understand, Malware is very clever and evasive, trying to understand where it is, using various ways to evade detection and analysis by security systems and researchers. Last research shows that 98% of all malware is using at least one sandbox evasion technique. It means that when a malware sees a sandbox environment, it will try to evade it in one way or another. An additional research mentions that in every attack, malware is using as many as 10 or more different techniques. Like any good military leader, to defeat the enemy, we must study their tactics. So how can we use this knowledge to our advantage and prevent malware? Deception technology uses the same defenses and technique malware is using against it. We are shaping the attacker's decision making and beating the bad guys in their own game, and we do that in two main ways. With our preemptive defense, we deceive malware into believing it's in a hostile or in an unattractive environment to attack, and by doing so reduce its motivation to attack and the chances of infection. For example, we make the malware believe it's in a sandbox or a virtual environment. In this phase, the solution stops at least 90% of malware and usually in less than 1 or 2 seconds. With our proactive defense, we dynamically respond to threats as they evolve based on the current detected stage of compromise, and we change the outcome of the attack. For example, we deceive and stop ransomware that operates immediately, making it believe it succeeded in encrypting the files as we safeguard them. If we look at the endpoint kill chain, Deceptive Bytes' solution operates through all the stages of compromise, from the initial recon until the actual attack. This means that we increase our ability to stop any attack at any stage. Since the solution looks at how the attacker operates, his tool, techniques, and also how malware behaves and how it protects itself, which is quite the same for different types of attack, the solution is effective against a variety of threats, including 0 days, evasive malware, ransomware, trojans, crypto miners, and others that eventually use the same evasion techniques. Deceptive Bytes' advantages are that we can prevent unknown and sophisticated threats with very high prevention and detection rates in real time. We don't need to scan anything, so it's very lightweight and consumes little to no resources. Since we don't rely on signatures, we don't need constant updates, and it can work in standalone, disconnected, and VDI environments. Also, since adversaries share techniques from one another, we only need to know one technique to be able to potentially stop millions of future threats with low to non-existing false positives. In addition, our solution operates in user mode, meaning it's more stable than other products. The deception engine is the main engine of the solution, and it's complemented with application control and the behavioral engine to protect against fileless attacks. The anti-malware engine controls Windows Defender, and the network engine controls Windows Firewall. The device control engine helps manage security for connected devices on the endpoint. All of the engines combined help increase the endpoint security posture of the organization under our platform. This is the user interface on the endpoint. It shows the status of the engines, detected malware, and blocked programs by IT. It also coexists with other security tools as it automatically detects and approves them. This is the management console. It deploys the agents, notifies about prevented malware, and it gives the visibility and control of endpoints across the organization network to the CISOs and IT managers. The platform also integrates to SIEM and log systems such as QRadar, ArcSight, and others. It connects to threat intelligence services such as VirusTotal and sandbox environments like Cuckoo and Cape. The solution also easily integrates to your Active Directory to help manage the endpoints across the organization and to Windows Defender and Firewall. So, we help organizations protect against unknown and sophisticated threats and prevent damage to the data and assets while reducing reputational risk and operational burden. We help CISOs and IT managers by automating responses to detected malware. This helps them reduce alerts fatigue and handling of false positives. And we help the C-level increase efficiency for all employees' endpoints and protect them when working remotely. In addition, we reduce overall operational costs. Besides using endpoint deception-based solutions, there are some other ways we can deter malware. For example, by installing VMware or VirtualBox, malware will get false indicators that the machine is a VM, which will deter it from running. Simply running specific Windows executables can, in some cases, indicate to malware that it's being investigated, so starting them can improve security as well. For example, Command Prompt, Task Manager, Notepad, and others. Also, seize internal tools that are evaded by malware, running them even in active mode, can prevent attacks. Finally, creating certain files, folders, and registry keys will also deter malware, as it will confuse it to falsely detect the environment as a VM or a sandbox. For example, sample.exe or malware.exe under the C drive, sandbox or Kugus folders under the C drive, or software/wine under the current user registry key. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of the conference.